We'll start with the prayers. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Viddishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are doing this wonderful text called as Saddarshanam by Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi, who lived about 70 years ago in Tiruvannamalai, a very great sage who had realized the ultimate truth of the Vedas. He was a living symbol of Shrotriya Brahmanishtam, which means a person who knew the Shastra, the scriptures, and who also lived the lifestyle recommended by the Shastra. We have covered 2 verses so far in the last lecture, and this is extremely deep text for the senior students of Advaitam, and it focuses on Tvam Pada Vichara. You see, in Mahavakyam, Tat Tvamasi, we have 3 components. Tat, Tvam, Asi. That stands for the highest principle called as God or Brahman, or the creator of the universe. Tvam stands for me, the individual, who is the indweller in this body. Asi means there is oneness between this Jiva and the Paramatma. There is oneness, and that oneness is revealed by Asi Padartha. Asi means it is one Jiva, one Paramatma, one Brahman, which is always existing. The whole text of these 40 verses are describing to me how I should look at the world, how should I look at myself, what should be the right vision which I should have as per the scriptures. So that is the goal. The ultimate goal, we should be very clear in these 40 verses. Slowly, I have to train myself to see the same vision of a jnani, of a wise man, who has understood and who has realized the truth of the vision of this universe. The first verse, which we saw last week, Saddarshanam. What is the meaning of darshanam? Darshanam means vision. Sat means what? Sat means existence principle, or the pure one entity which exists in this entire universe. This is a higher principle. This is the awareness principle which exists not only in this body, it also exists beyond the body into the universe. There is only one principle called as consciousness. So right in the beginning, the author is giving us the highest knowledge which he wants to give. Like in many texts, which Shankaracharya also wrote, the style in which they write the text is they will enumerate the goal right at the beginning. And then they will try to expand and give us the explanation of how to reach that goal. So the goal is explained in this first verse. And what is the goal? The goal is awareness principle. Awareness is also called as knowledge, jnanam, consciousness. Consciousness is not an attribute of the body, but it is an independently existing principle. Many of us make the mistake of taking the consciousness in the body as me. That means I take the body as primary and I take attribute consciousness as an attribute of the body. Initially, all of us, we learn the scriptures like that. But then later on, we should shift the attention not to focus on the body, but we should focus on the consciousness. And how do I look at this consciousness? I look at it without the thoughts in my mind, without the objects outside. This is the easiest and the straight and the direct method of realization of the truth. Very beautifully said in the first verse. How do I realize this awareness? I realize this awareness as pure awareness or consciousness without any thoughts. Throughout the day, we are conscious. We are conscious. Your consciousness never changes. It is a changeless principle. And what is coming and going is the thoughts. I, without the identification with the body or with the thoughts, is consciousness. Very easy to realize if you know the methodology of realizing the truth. I can realize this truth while listening to the talk itself. When I'm listening, the words are coming into, I can listen through my ears, but in between the two words, if there is a gap, that gap is nothing but awareness. I am. This feeling of consciousness, awareness never leaves us. It is there before the birth of the body. It is there after the death of the body. It is there during the life in the waking state. Many of us might ask, how is it possible? Upanishads give us a beautiful method. They say, aren't you existing in your sleep? Yes, we all exist in our sleep. Without being conscious of our thoughts, without being conscious of the world outside or the body. The sleep example is the best example given in many Upanishads, and it is used as a methodology to understand the pure consciousness nature. So that was in the first verse. The second verse says that jnana destroys duality. How does this happen? When I know that I'm pure awareness principle, consciousness principle, and I focus on that aspect of mine, then what happens is the identification with the body and the thoughts and the world drops automatically. You will see it. I mean, all of us can realize this truth. This is not something new, because it is talking about I myself. The I, the pure thought, I consciousness, can be this non-dual entity. So this knowledge about myself, the self-knowledge, which is the knowledge of pure consciousness. It destroys the difference between the body, the mind, and me. It destroys the duality. That means I experience myself, but I don't experience anything else except myself as pure consciousness. When this happens, when I know through understanding, then I can say I am immortal. All mortality is only in time and space. When there is no time, no space, there is no mortality. The nature itself is immortal. When there is no time, no space, we say that itself means it is immortal. Today we are going to see the third verse. And the third verse is going to talk about what is the adhishtanam. Adhishtanam means what is the substratum of this entire universe. And the substratum for the entire universe is nothing else but this consciousness principle. How do I look at this substratum? Substratum in Sanskrit is called as adhishtanam. So when I say world, world includes everything. It includes the jiva, that is me. It includes the jagat, which is the outside external world. It also includes the creator. And for all these three, Ramana Maharishi says that Brahman, or this pure consciousness, is the substratum. How it is the substratum? Exactly like how for a painting, canvas is a substratum. In a painting, you can see a lot of pictures of sentient beings, insentient objects, but the underlying principle of those objects in the painting is the canvas. Suppose you're watching a movie on a TV. There are many displays of heroes, heroines, the news items, and so on. But behind all those news items and the heroes and the heroines, there is a screen. So that screen represents the consciousness in us and in the entire universe. When you look at it from the vision of the screen, you will say that there is only screen, there is no other pictures in it, because that is non-dual by nature. That means all the screen, all the things which we saw on the TV came and went exactly like how the experiences which we have during the daytime, sleeping time, and the dream time. All our experiences come and go, but what remains is the pure consciousness, which is called as adhishtanam. And the scriptures are very clear in telling us, from the view of the adhishtanam, we say that the world is, there is no duality, there is no plurality in the world, there is only one entity, which is the awareness, consciousness principle. So this is the way in which we have to change our vision. Our own vision has to change. It is a cognitive change in our intellect. We will not be having any external changes. Through the study of the scriptures, what the wise people or the saints, they tell us is, we can change our own thoughts, we can reduce our thoughts, we can improve the quality of our thoughts, we can change the direction in which we think. That is what we are going to see in verse number 3 today. I'll go straight to verse number 3. The primary cause of the world and the I is accepted by all to be the Lord with immeasurable power. That means this consciousness, we call it as God. This I principle, we call it as, we can call it as anything. We call it as Brahman, we call it as God, we call it as the truth, we call it as the, the higher principle. What Ramana Maharishi is saying is that in this picture, that one alone has become the Triputi. Triputi means what? The seen, the seer, and the canvas in which it is seen. Triputi means as soon as we wake up in the morning, the seer I, the seen world, and the seeing process starts. This is called as Triputi. Seer is the I, the Jiva, the seen is the world, and the seeing process is through a thought process. It is a perception. And without the I in this body, nobody can have any experience at all. The development of these 40 verses, you should remember the I will keep on coming. And that I is what is, we are going to go deeper and deeper and deeper in every verse. This is going to be a gradual build-up of knowing the truth I. How do we understand this now? How do we approach this one truth principle? Through the cause-effect relationship. What is the relationship between me, the experiencer of the world, and the world? I am the experiencer Jiva, and I was born in this Jagat. This is all our experience. Right from the childhood, our normal understanding of the world and me today is, I am the experiencer and I experience the world. Now this I can be the cause of my dream. This when I say I am the cause of the dream, it refers to my mind only. And what is the world? World is not cause of by itself, but it is created. It is created by somebody. And that somebody, we call it as God, or the higher principle which exists in the universe, all pervading principle. This consciousness, this Jagat, if you see the difference between Jagat and the Jiva, you will notice that the Jagat consists mainly of the inert objects, and inert object cannot know itself, but I, the experiencer, I know myself. This is how we understand. There is a principle in me which is there, which is called as consciousness, and it is not there in the inert objects like a table, like a chair, like a wall. It is not there. So the relationship is generally between a sentient consciousness principle, the experiencer, and the world of objects which is experienced. And we say that this consciousness or God or Sat principle, which is used as by Ramana Maharishi, is the cause of the body, mind, and a reflection of that consciousness in this body, or reflection of that consciousness in the whole universe. So this is what we have to be. Our goal is to find out the truth, that Sat, which is the cause. Which is the cause means what? Without that awareness, this body has got no existence. This body is borrowing existence from that one consciousness existence principle. The world is also borrowing that existence and consciousness from that one principle which we are now, that is our, uh, uh, we can call it X, we can call it Sat. Let's call it Sat because that's a word which we are going to use all throughout this text. And generally we may ask, who created this Sat? Who created this God? God is what we used in religions. In a religious terminology, we call it God. Whereas in philosophy, the same thing is called as Brahman, or it is called as reality. And this reality must be omnipotent. Omnipotent means it has got all the powers. It's omniscient. Omniscient means it has got the knowledge. I'm now talking about the awareness principle. That entity which we call as Sat, it is present everywhere because it's all pervading. These are the ways in which the Upanishads describe this entity, describe this consciousness principle, Sat Chit Ananda principle. This is how they describe. What Ramana Maharishi is trying to do is he's trying to explain to us whatever is there in the Upanishads, how do I realize that in my own mind? Because this is the ultimate success of a wise man. A wise man, when he studies the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishad, he will not just take the literal word meaning and then he'll just understand it and then he'll probably forget it after some time. The real study of the spiritual texts lies in trying to apply that knowledge to ourselves. Only when we try to apply that knowledge, we will get transformed, we will get the benefit of that knowledge. Very, very important point we should remember whenever we are studying any spiritual text. We can take other texts where we just have a intellectual understanding and that may be enough, whether it is mathematics, whether it is physics, whether it is computer science, medical sciences. If you are able to remember, keep it in memory, understand the concept, that is enough. But in this case, when it comes to the subjective science, when it comes to the spiritual study, be it the Bhagavad Gita, be it any text, be it any Upanishads, always we have to see how do I realize that which the Upanishads are revealing. They are revealing something in this universe, something which is new to me. When some people ask us who created God, we should say it's a wrong question because you're assuming that there is a God who has created the world. And God is a causeless cause. That means what? There is no cause, there is no creator for God. He is a causeless God. That is what we say in Vedanta. Anadi, the term we use is Anadi. That means he is always there. When something is always there, we cannot make it a product. When we ask who created God, that means we are making God an effect. Who created a pot? Pot is an effect, it's a product. So God cannot be taken like a product and say that, because then you're making God as a product or an effect. But we are saying God is the cause, is a causeless cause. These type of reasonings we use only to arrive at the truth. Then we ask the question, with what material did God create this entire universe? We say that the material is the same as the God himself. And that is why we say in the Bhagavad Gita that in the 10th chapter and 11th chapter, God says, Bhagavan, Lord Krishna says, I am the whole universe. You can see my vibhutis in the 10th chapter, and he says, you see the entire universe in me, in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. God appears as the world. That means that pure awareness consciousness, which is my truth. which is my truth means, which is the truth of me and the world, that one entity, pure awareness itself is now appearing as the entire universe. Again, in sleep, what happens? This whole material universe, it goes back into that pure consciousness. Again, when we come back from sleep tomorrow morning, when we get up, again the whole world emerges from that one entity. So this experience, what we have is of manifestation and unmanifestation of the world. That is what we should, if this point is understood by us, then the text becomes extremely easy. When we, people who knit a sweater or knit a jacket, or, out of a ball of wool, we can make different sceneries in the sweater. Or even we take a simple cloth and we do some embroidery in it, we can create different designs. So the designs represent the world. The background, the wool represents the consciousness principle. This is just an example, like how we took the canvas. So what does all this say? It says that there is only one truth, one substratum, which is the illuminator. Illuminator means it is the consciousness principle. Without that light of consciousness, there is no name and form. All the names and form, whether it is you call yourself as Kumuda, you can call it as Jacqueline, you can call as Rohini, you can call as any names. All these are only names of bodies. But it is coming and going in that higher I. The same I which I am now calling it as I am so and so, it has a higher nature. That higher nature is what is being revealed, which is pure consciousness, pure awareness. And it appears as this whole universe, Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. So Ramana Maharishi in this verse, he is saying that all these three, which we are calling as Jiva, that means the body with the consciousness, Jagat, the objective world, and the creator who has created this universe, all are one Sat principle. And the goal of the text is to discover this divisionless substance called as Brahman or Sat. The differences which we notice or which we experiences are superficial. Superficial means they are incidental. They are apparent. They are not real. When they are not real, real means what? It should exist all the periods of time. I am consciousness, all of us say right from the birth till today. It has not changed. That consciousness is called as the substance, or that is called as the Adhishtanam. Whereas our experiences of childhood, youth, old age, all these experiences belong to the body that has come and gone. It's like seeing the wave and the ocean. When we look at these, when we look at a wave or ocean, we are looking at the name and form. When we say that there is only one water behind the wave or ocean, that vision is called as the Sat vision. That is the vision which Ramana Maharishi is trying to explain to us when it comes to me, the consciousness principle. And that consciousness principle has got infinite power. Infinite power means what? It can create anything in the universe. For you, it creates your world. For me, it creates my world. For somebody sitting in America, it creates for him his own world. For different jivas in different minds, it creates It's individual worlds, which is called as the Jiva Srishti. That means the individual creates his own creation through Maya principle. But Maya principle is only one. And it is appearing as so many bodies and so many permutations and combinations in the world. Like, how does this happen? If you see the dream example, all of us, we know and we experience a dream. And when we say that we are experiencing this dream, what we do is we are dividing our own mind into two ways. And that is, we divide the mind into the world, the dream world, and we divide the mind into the dreamer also. That means there are two things. We divide, the waker gets divided into the dreamer and the dream world. One waker. It is one waker who gets divided. The Jiva is the waker. Jagat is the waking world when it comes to the Brahman. Whatever the waker Jiva, the same principle applies to the Brahman also. This is how we should understand this waking world. By changing our understanding or cognition, we are not changing anything at all. We are only trying to have a different view of what we are experiencing ourselves. We remove samsara, which is called as mithya. Samsara means what? All the sorrows which we experience. Exactly like what? Like the dream example. As soon as we wake up, we say the dream was just an experience. I experienced it and it went away. Similarly, yesterday's experiences, if you ask today, yesterday's waking experiences, if you ask today, it is already gone. And how do I say? I say that it came and went. Therefore, what we are saying, or what Ramana Maharishi is saying, is that Sat principle is the ultimate truth of the seer, seen, and seen. I mean, in many advanced textbooks, they describe this consciousness, how it goes out through the body, through the mind, through the sense organs into the world, and then how it resolves and comes back into the same. This is in Dakshinamurti Nana Chitkat Otarastitamaha Deepat Prabhabhaswaram. That verse of the Dakshinamurti Stotram, if you remember, you will be clear about what this Adhishtanam means. So Adhishtanam is the one canvas of painting, and in which both the Chetana Jiva and the Achetana mountain, they come and go. I've explained to you the TV screen. I've explained to you the Brahman, in which the same thing happens. When it comes to Brahman or this consciousness, we must remember one major point. Like we have a Shakti of sleep to create the dream, this consciousness has the Shakti, has the power to create this entire universe. And that Shakti is called as Maya Shakti. It makes the infinite. Infinite means what? The timeless. I am without time in my sleep state. I don't experience any time. That is my true nature. But During the waking Jagrat Avastha, I experience time. Morning comes, evening comes, morning comes, evening comes. All the play of Maya Shakti. You can say it is the play of the sun and the earth moving around, but how does the sun move? How does the earth move? How does the sun remain stationary? It's all the Shakti, that Shakti of that awareness principle, consciousness principle. And it makes insentient matter sentient. It makes the insentient body sentient when we wake up. It makes the difference between the Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara. It is all the Shakti, it is all the Maya Shakti. Like we experience the difference between the dreamer, dream world, it's all in the mind. How does this, especially when you get up in the morning and you have just got up from a dream, you can experience the Shakti which we have. While listening to the talk, you may not understand this Shakti. Make it a point, next time when you get up from a dream, remember this point. Oh my God, there was some power in me which projected all the experiences in the dream, and then I got up. That power in each jiva, in each body, is called as the Shakti. The same power also expresses as the speaking power. It is like I am talking to you, the speaking power is nothing but it is a Shakti, it's a power, which is not there in the table or a chair. A table and a chair cannot talk, it cannot hear. You are listening, I am talking, that power is what we must be aware of. And beyond that power, the one who holds that power, the holder, is called as Brahman, or the awareness, or the consciousness. That is why in Keno Upanishad it says, it is the eye of the eye, ear of the ear. It is the mind of the mind. That means what? It is the power. It is the power behind the mind, the power behind the eyes, the power behind the hands to lift an object. We take it for granted that I am conscious, I can lift, I can jog, I can run, I can think, I can walk, I can talk, I can sing, I can see, I can hear, but all these are all powers. And these powers rest in the principle called as consciousness. We have to gradually, this is a subtle point to be understood. Gradually, we have to take our attention to this power in us and then take it to a higher power, which is called as awareness. And that awareness principle, the Upanishads say, is the same as Brahman, Tattvamasi. That Brahman who is a creator of this universe, and you, the Jiva, which is in this body, they are one. All the Mahavakyas have to be studied like this. This text, Saddarshanam, is a study of Mahavakyam. It is a study, it's a pure study of the Mahavakya mantra. So that is about verse number 3. We'll go into the next verse. These are extremely deep verses. That's why I'm taking a lot of time to explain. This is a higher text, and Ramana Maharishi is teaching us the highest truth from the Upanishads. He's trying to give us to us through these verses so that we can change our vision about our own self and about the world. In this 4th verse, Arabhyate Jiva Jagat Paratma Tattva Vidhanena Matam Samastam. All philosophies begin with the naming of the principles of the individual, the world, and the soul, supreme soul. That means Three principles, which we have just now seen. And then what? Then it says the I notion remains so long as these three exist. The abidance in the self is when there is absence of the I notion. That is what you should underline in this verse. This is a central teaching, central verse of these 40 verses which we are learning. This one is an important verse. This is the foundation in which the entire balance verses are going to be made. What is being revealed here? Try to understand this principle. In this, all of us, we say, I woke up, I am walking, I am working today, I am eating, I am singing, I am doing so many activities. So this I, let us understand how does it come. I comes only when I am in the time and space and when I am identified with this body. That means the first thing you should understand is the body and the I are related. I notion comes in the mind of a person. It comes and then it goes away when the person is sleeping. This is where we should clearly see in our own mind, we must make this discrimination. Unless you make this discrimination in your own mind, you will not be able to go forward in understanding the other verses. That's why this verse number 4 is very important, because it says, how does the I notion come into the body? It comes because it is a superimposition. It is a adhyasa. And when I notion comes in, what happens is I become the seer, then the world becomes, the body becomes the scene, and through this body I see the world. And then what happens? The ego comes. That ego is called as the I notion. When I am holding on to this ego, you can never see the oneness. Very important point. Whenever I'm with the ego of the body, mind, and the world, I can never see the oneness. That means I'm looking at the wave. I'm looking at the ring. I'm looking at the ornament. My vision is on the wave, not on the water. My vision is on the body. My vision is in the mind. So this I notion comes, it is an adhyasa, it exists, and it exists only when there is in the waking state. And this I notion dissolves. When it dissolves, it is called as negation, apavada. What Ramana Maharishi is saying is, when this I notion gets dissolved, then that is called as Brahman. And that, he says, is Advaitam. Very, very dramatic way he presents this entire truth in this simple form. If you have not understood this principle of this particular verse, please put your question in the chat session. I will re-explain this again if it is not understood, because this is the central message of Ramana Maharishi in this whole 40 verses. In the 26th verse, again, he will explain one more time what this ego I is. Different philosophers and come with different conclusions about the Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. But what he says is, if you know this particular I notion exists, that is called as the ego I. That is the world of plurality. That is the world of duality. When this I notion goes, I still exist. That pure existence is called as Advaitam or Turiyam or Sat, and that is exactly like holding an apple in your hand. You and I can easily understand that principle because in sleep we are that. What we are only trying to do is we are trying to remember what was my nature in sleep. The only thing in sleep is I don't know, I'm not aware of myself. But here is Ramana Maharshi saying that awareness goes because the body and the mind are not there. They have become passive. When the mind has become passive, the consciousness is not reflected. Therefore, the consciousness remains as it is. Pure self-evident consciousness remains. You may ask the question, how does this self-evident consciousness is not aware of itself in sleep? You may have this question. And to that question, the Upanishads are very clear. They say, in order to be aware, you need an object. To remain as the subject, you don't need to have anything. You are the pure consciousness. You can remain as a spiritual being. You can exist as a spiritual being without the body, without the mind, without the world. And when I remain as the spiritual being, I am called as immortal. This is my nature of immortality because that Atma, that I, without the notion of I, it's a very divine principle. It's a higher principle than this entire matter principle of which the world is made of. Body, mind, the world of objects, they are all matter. Without that consciousness principle reflecting in this matter, there is no other world. This is something which we are going to see again and again in the future verses. So let's go forward. Then he brings the topic of the three gunas. For those who have done the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, you'll remember Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic. These are three gunas. And here, what we are trying to see is, when I am Sattvic, what is my vision? When I am Rajasic, what is my vision? Rajasic means what? I'm now referring to the mind. I means the mind here. When I am with my mind and I am with a Rajasic mind, I am going to see Dvaitam. Dvaitam means plurality. When I am Tamasic, Tamasic means what? When I have a vritti, when I have thought of laziness, of inertia, I will be in Dvaitam. Dvaitam means I and the world. I am a part of Ishvara. When we say I am a part of Ishvara, we say that that is a tamasic jiva. And jiva is always going to be different when you are taking the mind or the body. These three types of jivas are being described when I myself am identified with the body and mind. When I'm identifying with the sattvic thought, like for example, I say I am having the vision of that oneness, one Sat principle, then it is called as sattvic thought. Sattvic thought means it is the guna in the mind. This is the clarity of my own nature. Throughout the day, we all have these three types of thoughts. And if these thoughts keeps on changing, when these thoughts are changing, that is called as the Maya Shakti of the Lord. It expresses in all our minds. Your mind, my mind, everybody's minds. These three thoughts keeps on coming and going, coming and going. Within 1 hour itself, you may have a sattvic thought and then suddenly you may have a rajasic thought, and third you may have a tamasic thought. They're changing so rapidly. This change constitutes the time principle of the thoughts changing in our mind. When their thoughts change, they give a different vision of the world to us. Vedanta removes the crier, not the crying. Crying is a part of the mind and the body. But the crier knows I am not crying, but I am the pure consciousness principle. So who is a jnani? Jnani is a one. Jnani means a wise man who knows the scriptures. You and I can call ourselves wise when we study the Bhagavad Gita, when we study the Upanishads, when we learn how to change my thoughts, how to change the pattern of how I think. From a jiva, I drop my jivatvam. That means I drop the three gunas in my mind, and then I can say I am that pure awareness. This is what is described in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as Gunatita. Gunatita means one who has gone beyond the three gunas. It is the same thing which is taught as Sthita Prajna. That means whose consciousness is sthiram. It is not oscillating with the three gunas. His consciousness, his reflected consciousness in the mind is sthira. So the jnani is free from the three gunas, and his knowledge is sattvic. He has a sattva guna of the knowledge of the world. He drops the rajasic guna of the ego, the knower I, or the ahamkara, or the reflected consciousness, and he's dropped the ignorance of a pramata. Pramata means the ego again. So when we also learn to drop our I notion and learn through the scriptures the real nature of mind as pure awareness, we will be free from the three gunas, which are always changing in this mind. Mind is nothing but matter. Matter is defined as always changing. All the matter, the cells in our body are changing rapidly. The cells are changing, our thoughts are changing, but there is one changeless principle, which is consciousness. That is what is called as Sat. See how deep these verses are, how deep is the thought of Ramana Maharshi. And through these thoughts, he is also teaching us how to go deeper into our own mind and understand our truth as this Sat principle. Sat means Satchit Ananda, and you can take it as existence, you can take it as consciousness, but there is something which is called as one entity. The Satchidananda has come from the Taittiriya Upanishad. It is defined as the Swarupam of that entity which constitutes, which is the underlying principle of the whole universe. So what happens? Why do we face sorrow in life? That is being described in this 5th verse. Arguments that this is real or false, sentient or inert, sorrow or joy are of no purpose. Whenever we try to have arguments in life, we come into some silly arguments and some philosophical arguments. Here it describes to us how we argue in this world. The state free from all thoughts without the I notion, the world is the supreme state desired by us. It's a very, very bold declaration of Ramana Maharishi. See what a bold declaration is making. Nishtha Vikalpa Parama Khileshta. That means we are all want to reach this, want to drop this I notion. That is a real goal in life. But we get caught up. We get caught up of identifying with the body and mind and then end up in sorrow. Let us try to understand this verse by understanding what are the three terms which are being used in all the debates. We have seen this in Brahma Sutra, this particular three words, Vivada, Vitanda, and Vada. This can be used in practical life also. Whenever you see two people debate, trying to in a conflict situation, you can analyze the principle in these three ways. Suppose you see two people arguing. Suppose a husband and wife are arguing, or a father and son is arguing, a daughter and mother are arguing. You can see, you can watch the debate, you can watch the conflict. There are three ways in which they are expressing the conflict. The first method is called as Vivada. Suppose a mother and a son are fighting, or a husband and wife are fighting. The husband wants to prove his point. The wife wants to prove her point. When both are trying to push their own individual opinions, that is called as Vivada. In Sanskrit, it is a term, it is also called as Jalpa. Jalpa means ego. Ego is bloated. Your ego is bloated, my ego is bloated, we both are fighting. And what are we trying to do? Our goal in this conflict is to show that I am right and you are wrong. So this is the most common method of conflict or debates which we see. It can happen in office, it can happen at home, it can happen amongst friends also, it can happen in all the situations. Then the second method is called Vithanda. Vithanda means what? In this case, you are trying to prove and you want to prick the ego of the other person. You want to only say that I am right. I am the only one who is right. In the previous case, each one is trying to outwit the other. In this case, what it is you are trying to say I am the only who is right. You are wrong and I am only right. So in this case, you are trying to prick that fellow's ego and say you are wrong, you are wrong, you are wrong. You keep on saying the other to the other person. We also, when we try to bring up our children, we also say, oh, you don't know, you're wrong, you're wrong. That means what we are saying that I am right, you are wrong. When we say you are wrong and you keep on insisting that, that method of arguing is called as Vithanda. And the third method, which is called as Lord Krishna's method in the Bhagavad Gita, is called as Samvada method. In any discussion, we must be able to have Samvada. Samvada means what? Samvada means we are going to drop our ego. You drop your ego, I drop my ego, and what is our aim? Our aim is only to look at arrive at the truth. So it is called as dialogue. it is called as Samvada. In Bhagavad Gita, we keep on saying at the end of every chapter, Lord Krishna says Samvada. Arjuna, Krishna, Samvada. Normally, the Upanishads are also taught in the way of Samvada. It's a dialogue. And here Ramana Maharishi is saying, whenever you're having a discussion, you go with this method of Samvada, not as Vitanda or Vivada. Then you can arrive at the truth of the universe. It is not going to help if you keep on driving the I notion again and again. That means the ego. Sadhana Panchakam also says the same thing in third verse. What it says is you reflect on the meaning of the Upanishads and then you take the refuge in one ultimate truth, which is revealed as Aham Brahma Asmi. And what it says, Sadhana Panchakam, a very beautiful construction of Shankaracharya. He says you have to drop the pride, that means drop the ego. As long as you have the ego, I am this body, you can never own up, I am Brahman. And whenever we are trying to argue with somebody else, whenever we are trying to ask a question, always remember this point which I'm saying. Are you asking the question keeping that you are the body or mind, or you are asking the question with reference to you are the consciousness? 99% of the questions will get dropped the moment you ask yourself, am I the body and mind? With reference to that, I'm asking the question, or am I the consciousness awareness principle by which I'm asking this question? And you will drop your arguments the moment you understand you are pure consciousness principle. And all our studies should result in this truth. Vivek Chudamani in the 59th verse says that without this supreme reality, without knowing this study of this Sat principle, all the study which we do is useless, is futile. And after you have known this, after you have known the supreme reality, then what happens? Then also the study is futile. Because from that pure consciousness principle, that alone is. So the Vedas proclaim in the end, you can drop the Vedas also, because the Vedas have served the purpose to reveal the truth to you. It has revealed that pure consciousness, and that's all. That's the end of your spiritual study. The Vedas are bold and say that you drop the Vedas and live as the Jivan Mukta. The cause of the world is this sentient Satchit Ananda principle called as Brahman. With reference to the world, we say it is the cause. But you must understand that this is a causeless cause. That means by itself, it is not even a cause. That is the ultimate understanding. And what is this cause? It is the state when there is no thought, when there is no I notion and the world. You will all agree that this I notion in this body gets born when I wake up in the morning. I'm sure all of you agree this. You are lying down in the bed, you are sleeping, there is no I notion. You are dreaming, there is no I notion. You have I notion of something else in the dream, but that we are not bothered. In the waking state alone, we are having this I notion. How is this I notion born? I notion is born as soon as I wake up. That means my mind gets woken up, my mind goes to sleep. In the sleeping mind, there is no I notion, but I, the Sat Chit Ananda consciousness, am existing as pure existence. That is the reality which is being revealed. Brahman alone is being experienced in the same thing is experienced in the Vyavaharika plane, but what is covering that nature is the Panchakoshas. That means the body is covering the consciousness, the thoughts are covering the consciousness, the world of objects is covering that consciousness, and it is unnecessarily putting all the limitations on this I, that pure I. And a jiva, if he is very sattvic, he will sing the glory of the Lord. If he is very rajasic, he will get bound in duty. That means whole day you will be saying, I'm doing my duty, I'm doing my duty for my family. The scripture says, yes, you must do the duty, no doubt about it. But at the same time, know yourself. Know who you are. You have duty to your own self. You have duty to the family. You have duty to the children. You have duty to the society, to the world. But at the same time, know, because without knowing this truth about yourself, don't leave this world. The goal of life, the purpose of life is twofold. One is to look after the body, to look after the family. That is one goal. The second goal, according to scriptures, is know yourself. Know who is the real truth behind this body. And what does the tamasic person do? He will run behind a TV. He'll just to forget himself. Either he will just go and like to just go and sit in a beach, look at the waves in order to forget himself. Be one with nature. It is one way of forgetting your problems. You watch TV, you watch the news, you watch the share market. All this is what it is, going away from your real nature and then getting caught up in the world. This is where Ramana Maharishi says, come back to your own self. Come back and realize the truth behind this body and mind. We nourish the I notion, the ahamkara, in all transactions. In every transaction, we nourish this. That means the triputi. The triputi means what? The I notion, the seer, hearer, smeller, ahamkara, and the body and the world they are interacting. This whole thing is all to do with the I notion, which is, in one word, if you want to call it, it is called as ahamkara. The ego. In Sanskrit, it's ahamkara. In English, it's called as ego. And when we analyze ourselves either with reference to the body or with reference to what the body has. For example, or with reference to the mind. When I'm referring to the mind, I will say I'm a PhD in physics, I'm a PhD in philosophy, PhD in so and so. These are all nothing to do. It's only with reference to the mind. I'm rich, I'm poor, this is all what you have, what possessions the body is holding. I'm happy, unhappy is with the mind. But who are you? Who is the ultimate I? That is what is the seeker is searching. And this jiva is called as Tattvamasi, which is that Tat talks about the never changing I, which is that Advaitam consciousness principle, which is the higher principle compared to the three states. And it is always free. That Tat principle, Tat Tvam Asi, that principle, that pure consciousness principle, is always free from the body and mind. And that is what we call in the Upanishads as Asangaha. Asangaha means unconnected with the body. Therefore, it can drop the identification, it can take the identification. What takes the identification is not the Atma. It is the mind with the power of Atma takes the identification with this body and then transacts with the world. The Tvam part is the Ahamkara, the ego part, the transactional I. And when I look at it from this ego I am talking, you're listening, I'm teaching, you're hearing. These are all transactions. So from this transactional point of the waker and the waking world, Ishvara, the creator, is real. It is reality. I am not the creator. I am not the creator of the 5 elements. This body is made up of 5 elements. Who created the 5 elements? There's some principle. So that higher principle, which is creator, which is the controller, which is the on which depends the entire karma phalam, is this higher Lord principle. This is only with reference to the transactional world. And in the transactional world, we must solve the problems. With a clear mind, the study of the scriptures helps me to have a clarity in my mind. My mind will not be clogged with so many problems and ideas and so on, conceptions and so on. Because the moment I say Aham Brahma Asmi, I am that pure consciousness, all other thoughts get dropped. And I learn again and again to remain calm. This one thought, which keeps on in my background, helps me to have a clear mind throughout my transactions. Transactions, when they come, I will attend to it and I will say, yes, this is what needs to be done. And to the best of our ability, we do it. And only when we come and sit down and ask a very serious question, what is this real I in me? Then I bring this Aikyam, that is the oneness with that pure consciousness, the Sat principle. Again and again in all these verses, Ramana Maharishi's goal is to go deeper and deeper into our own mind, remove the other areas which are blocking us, remove the covering of the different impurities in the mind, different notions, the wrong notions in our mind, and reveal to us the pure Chaitanya, the pure Sat principle, the pure Advaita principle. And this Advaita principle, when it gets revealed, it is only knowledge. It is not an experience. What is the difference between knowledge and experience is being shown here. I am the pure awareness, non-dual, in all the states of mind of waking, dream, and sleep. I am that pure awareness. In all the 3 states, what is common is this consciousness that never leaves. It is immortal. It is beyond time. Time cannot affect this. The 5 elements cannot affect this. Bhagavad Gita in chapter 2 gives us the nature of this. The fire cannot burn Atma. Air cannot dry up Atma. 5 elements have no, because this is a higher principle. It is consciousness, it is unconditional. That means what? It exists without any conditions. It does not depend on the condition of the 3 gunas. It does not depend on the condition of the body. It exists by itself. That is why it is called as Swarupam. Satchidananda Swarupam Aham Asmi. Swarupa means it's my intrinsic nature. I am not at all disturbed when there are Dvaita experiences, when I experience through my body all the different events in my life. Experiences, they come and go. They are all experiences belonging to the mind and body and the Triputi, the I notion in the, which is the ego. And the purpose of the whole life is to drop this ego and then discover my real nature. All of us, we have the Advaita experience in a sleep state. When the mind is passive, that is called as an experience. Because the consciousness exists, it is revealing the passive condition of the mind, which comes and goes. That means right now I'm fully awake. I'm listening, you're hearing, and it's a two-way conversation going on. Whereas in sleep, it is the ignorance of the self. The whole, that tamas covers, sleep is nothing else but the tamasic state of the mind. I said the mind goes through three gunas. The guna in which the mind expresses itself is tamasic, that is called as the sleep state, sushupti. It is a completely ignorant state. I am totally ignorant. That is why we say in Mandukya Upanishad, from that state, only from that ignorant state, only this waking state comes. And the dream state comes. Is Lord with form or without form? That is what is being said in the next verse, which is verse number 6. We will take this verse and then we'll probably stop after this today. Today we have done 3, 4, 5, 6. These are all very deep verses. I'm going relatively slow compared to how I would have taken the class, but I think this would help because this text is purely a text where you should try to remember what Ramana Maharishi is teaching about us to reveal our own true nature. In the 6th verse, it says that I am with form. That means in my waking state, I am with my body. There will be the idea that the world and the Lord also have the form. That means because I have a form, I assume that the creator also has a body like this and he has a form. What the Gita tells us is the whole universe is Lord's form. Therefore, the creator is with form. So when I look at the world outside this body, I say this is the body of the world. This is the body of Ishvara. If the self is without form, suppose you say the self is without form, then Ramana Maharishi is asking, who will see that vision is indeed one, limitless and complete? What it means is that because I, in my higher state, am formless, I have nothing else to see. My real nature is formless. Sakshi is formless. The space is formless. If space itself is formless and space is accommodating the entire cosmos, what to talk of the cause of space, which is Atma? In Taittiriya Upanishad clearly says that space is coming from Atma. And then air comes from space. Other three elements, they come from one after the other. That means fire comes from air. Water comes from fire. Earth comes from water. This is how the creation is explained in the Taittiriya Upanishad. So what it means is this consciousness is without form and it cannot have a vision of anything else because from its own standpoint, it is one, ekam. It is limitless and it is complete, purnaha. They say, aham atma purnaha. I am full and complete. When we say this, it is the direct realization of the self through the knowledge of the self. So, this verse is trying to take us from form to formless. When I first say I am with form, that means I see myself as the body. As the body, the pure I reflected in the mind, reflected in the body, becomes the father, becomes the husband, becomes the wife, becomes the daughter. And therefore, through the body, I will also see the Lord with form. Krishna's form, Rama's form. I will experience the Purusha. Purusha Suktam explains that the Lord is all the hands together, all the legs together, is the Ishvara's form. Bhagavad Gita also says the entire universe is my form. So we start like that. We start with Eka Rupa, Aneka Rupa. But the ultimate is what? To see the formless, to know the formless. World also is formless, that is the higher nature. Like I am the formless in my sleep state. In sleep, what form do I have? Can I say I have the form of this body? No. Do I have any weight in sleep? No. I am formless. I am existence, pure consciousness, no form. So similarly, this whole world, the Ishvara's form is also, there is a higher principle. It is called as the formless principle. The world is formless. My higher nature is also nirgunam. Therefore, I can say there is oneness in the nirguna form. The nirguna prapancha, the nirguna jiva are both one entity. This is the Mahavakya, seeing oneness between the jiva and the Paramatma. This is Ramana Maharishi, when he wrote this particular verse, he remembers Chandogya Upanishad, the Bhuma Vidya, the 7th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad, where Sanat Kumara is the teacher and Narada is the student. And he describes to him that the infinite pure consciousness is one, where there one sees nothing, in which one sees nothing, one hears nothing. And that is called as immortal. This is a beautiful definition of Brahman or Satchidananda in Chandogya Upanishad. See, all these definitions we should keep in mind, and we must keep it in a note form in order for us to contemplate and also to own up this as our real nature. If you're all spiritual students, these important definitions, maybe you just keep 10 definitions with you all the time. Mayeva Sakalam Jatam, Kaivalya Upanishad. This one from Chandogya Upanishad. Satyam Jnanam Anantam from Taittiriya Upanishad. So you keep about 10 verses which you can remember whenever you want to think about your nature. And the more we think about our nature with reference to these mantras, this notion of I notion with the body and mind will get reduced. And the more we think of this pure formless nature of ours, that becomes our truth. That becomes our intrinsic nature. Constantly, we need to keep this remembrance. That is what the gurus they teach us. We will see the world only as we see ourselves. That means if I see myself as formless, pure Sachit Ananda consciousness, I will also see the whole universe. That means if I am a jiva and I have a nature of pure Ananda, pure bliss, pure formless, pure awareness, I will look at my children in the same way. I will look at my wife in the same way. I will look at my neighbors in the same way. I will look at all the jivas in the same way. I will look at Ishvara in the same way. So this is how our vision expands. When this happens, this is called as Saddarshanam. This formless nature cannot be understood by mind as a thought. What it says is when the ego is dropped, is eliminated, we gain this vision automatically. This is what Ramana Maharishi's experience is. He was an expert in understanding the scriptures, applying to himself, dropping that ego I, realizing the truth in himself, and he says that Aham Brahma Asmi is a thought initially for us, but they reveal the nature of Brahman in us, which is without a thought. Aham Brahma Asmi is a thought, but it is only an aid in revealing the true nature of our nature, because our ego gets dropped. Hanumanji had said to Lord Rama, when I identify myself with the body, I am your servant. When I consider myself as an individual soul, that means the reflected soul, I am a part of you. But when I look upon myself as the spirit, that is the pure awareness, I am one with you. Yadyat chintayati tam tam bhavayati. Yam yam bhavayati tam tam karoti. Deha buddhyatu dasoham jiva buddhyat toda asmaka atma buddhyat tvamevam iti me nishchita matihi. So this meaning of this is that I am how Lord Rama and how he is equated with Hanumanji. I'm sure most of you have heard this before. And three things, again I repeat, with reference to the body, Hanumanji says, I am your servant. Because with reference to the body, I cannot be one with you. You are the creator. With reference to the body and the whole universe, this I cannot be. The body cannot be the equivalent to the universe. That is the first portion. That is one part of our realization. The second part of the realization is what? When I consider my mind. That mind is what? It is a reflected consciousness only. With reference to reflected consciousness, how do I relate to the Lord? How do I relate to the whole universe? My reflected consciousness is a small. It is only a part of this is called as Visishta Advaitam. Dvaitam is the first part. Visishta Advaitam is the part where I reflect when we talk about reflected consciousness. And then when we talk about that pure consciousness, in me and in the Lord, it is one. That is what is said in this beautiful verse. I will quickly try to finish this in the next 1 or 2 minutes. When we are identified with the body, we become servant of God. As an individual, we become a part of God. As the pure self, we are one with the God. Ahamkara, I is colored with either the sports or the business world or the medical field, or you can say, I alone exist as Brahman. That means that pure ahamkara, when it is looking at itself as Brahman, it is nothing else but one with Brahman. I use the koshas to describe the ahamkara, the lower I. That is, whenever I am talking about the five koshas, I am with Deha Abhimana. Jiva lives in the body as Aham or as Ahamkara. When it lives as Aham, it is called as Atma. It's ever free, but it is not known to us. The scriptures help us to know this Aham. When it lives as the Ahamkara, it is playing a role. It has got a dress of the Aham. Aham and Ahamkara, these are two things we should try to understand. When you say Aham, it means without the identification with the three koshas, with the three bodies. And if it is Ahamkara, it is identified with the three koshas, five koshas, three states, and the three bodies. Aham means Nirgunam. Ahamkara is Sagunam. Sagunam is with gunas. Aham is timeless, spaceless, limitless. Ahamkara is limited in time and space. Aham is a seer, Drik. Ahamkara is Drishyam, seen. Aham is Advaita Sat Darshanam. Ahamkara is Dvaita Mithya Darshanam. Aham is always secure. Ahamkara is always insecure. Aham is akarta, abhokta, non-doer, non-enjoyer. Ahamkara is karta, bhokta. Aham is ever happy. It is its intrinsic nature. Ahamkara is sarupaha, with form. That means it can never, dukkham is the nature of ahamkara. Aham is formless, arupaha, and sarupaha is ahamkara. That means with form is the nature of ahamkara. Very beautiful two divisions. If I have to understand the pure I in this body, in this mind, you can use this 9 differentiating factors between aham and ahamkara. Ahamkara is always playing a dominant role in the waking state. It goes into the passive state. The pure aham comes into play in the sushupti state. It can be known better in the sushupti state than in the waking state. But that state of aham continues, is changeless in all the 3 states because it happens to be the substratum. When I know this pure aham, I am free from samsara. I am free from dukkha. With that, we close today. We'll continue this talk next week with the 7th verse. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnahat Purnamudachade Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyade. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. If there are any other questions, you can let me know. Let me see if there is anything in the chat box. Abidance, can you please explain this again? Oh, what abidance means is, this is a question from Karthik. Um, see, abidance in my own nature means I don't think of anything else. My mind is not thinking of any objects in the world. That I notion is dropped. I am pure existence, pure consciousness, pure awareness. Suppose you're walking and you are not thinking about anything. Suppose you're seeing, this is what happens when you're abiding in your own nature. What happens is when you go to the East Coast and sit down there and you're watching it, that means you're abiding in your own nature. You've forgotten about your body, you've forgotten about your mind. You are just one with nature. Or you're one with the trees, the mountains. You're not thinking about anything. That means you are pure consciousness, pure awareness. That oneness, all of us, we do experience that. What Ramana Maharshi says is dwell more on that oneness. Don't bring the I notion again and again, and that is what is called the ego. That is what is called as the ego I. Dropping the ego I automatically is called as abidance in oneself. Could you please send the current presentation material in a PDF format for purpose of revision? Yes, Shama, I will do that because I've changed the format today. I found there were some errors in my old presentation, so I will send the new presentation to you tomorrow along with the video. I will revise the notes and I'll send it to everybody. Any other questions from anybody else? These are very, very high texts and they go very deep into the mind. And these are things which you should contemplate. You should just listen and then let it remain in your mind. That's all. A time will come when you will remember these sessions will help you to identify the pure nature of all of us. Uma is asking, pure consciousness is not the doer. Yes, you're right. The jiva is propelled by karma, meaning my actions or God's will. Does this mean there's no doer? Very good question. This will be answered by Ramana Maharishi in the 26th verse. He will answer this question. You are in the right track. Uma, your question is very, very relevant. The fate and free will discussion will be coming into this text again. What Ramana Maharishi is saying is, he says, then when you are identified yourself as a pure consciousness, then you have to surrender your free will to God, your fate to God, your body to God, your mind to God. You surrender that and then you remain as pure consciousness. But if you identify yourself as the body and the mind, you cannot surrender. Your willpower will come into play. There are two methods of looking at yourself. Either you say, I have completely surrendered my body and mind to the Lord, and I am the pure consciousness. I will live the whole life as pure consciousness. Let Lord take care of the body and mind. That is what Lord Krishna says, Ananya Chintayo Mam. You surrender to me. I will take care of your yoga. I will take care of whatever you need in life. I will take care of it. So the two principles are, we will be discussing this later in the verse number 21. You can go to that verse number 21. You will find the answer to the question of fate and free will. And his answer is simple. It depends on your vision. If your vision is, I am pure consciousness, there is no free will, that free will has been surrendered to God. God will take care of this body and mind, and I am no longer responsible for this life. purely from the pure consciousness angle. But yeah, the moment you say, I am the body, you have the free will, you will put in the effort to change whatever the fate comes to you by prarabdha.
So is that when that surrender happens,
Yes.
the mind very intuitively is like a servant just following the directions which is coming from pure consciousness.
Yes,
So
you're
whatever
right.
it is doing is just more like an automatically. You're not having to think hard. Shall I do this? Shall I do that?
Yes, that's
Because
correct.
it's you're just following. You're going with God's will because you've
Yes,
surrendered.
that's right. You follow the God's will and you say, let life carry on. Intuitively, what you will do is, you will just do your duty.
Yeah.
You will
Right.
do it at the best of your ability because you're not clogged up in your mind. You're not thinking of the past, you're not thinking of the future because you have surrendered.
So for the moment, therefore, the only thing that remains is through a constant practice and remembrance of the awareness principle, which you keep on telling us,
Yes.
I'm Brahman, or
Yes,
because the
that,
teacher tells
that
Tattvamasi.
avoidance. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
that
correct.
avoidance. So if you can just continuously remind ourselves,
Yes.
the mind itself will be in the pure sattvic state, purified mind is just quite naturally will surrender. There is nothing to be done.
There's nothing else to be done. You're right.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that summarizes Uma's question also. Uma, have you understood the answer? Okay, she has already replied saying that she has understood this. Okay. Anybody else has any other question? Okay, if there's no other question, we'll continue next week. And like I said, if you are interested, you can join the Gita class on Saturdays. And a lot of people are already there. Most of the people who are here are all there. So so let's continue as per next week. We'll do the verse number 7 of Saddarshanam.
Sekhaji,
Bolo, Bhagwan.
The last place you were saying that when I ID my body with myself with the body, I am your servant to Rama, he says.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Hanuman.
Correct.
And when I consider myself to
As
a
the
pure
mind.
soul,
Yeah.
To a pure soul, then I am what?
I am one with you. That means when I consider myself as the mind, I am a part. When I consider myself as the body, I am your servant. I am a dasa. I am, I am different from you. But when I am considered as a mind, then my mind is only a part of your mind. That means you are the soul. Your soul is there. That means Lord Rama is there in the soul of Hanuman. That means he can see Lord Rama in his heart.
So which means to say that I am part of you, lah.
Yes, I am part of you. Correct. That is when you start talking to God. Oh God, you and when you start speaking to God and you have a relationship with God, then you say, God, you are you are supreme. I can't even be anywhere near you. I am just a small dust in compared to you. So that is a part. But when you say that I am the consciousness, I am the awareness, then what you're saying is you have taught me this, that I am this nature. And you have taught me through the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads that this is my nature and also your nature. Then I can say, because I know I am the same nature of the pure Chaitanyam, pure awareness. From that point of view, you and I are no one. There's no difference. I am merged with you. You and I are the same. That is what we experience in our sleep state. In our sleep state, if you ask me after merging with God, how will I be? What Ramana?
One with God, lah.
Yeah, it will become one, exactly like you are in sleep. In sleep, you are not identified with this body, and you're not a part of this world also. So that will be the type of experience which is there after death. It is the same experience before birth of the body. One thing, the experience of sleep, the Upanishads, they tell us very simply, what was my experience before the birth of the body? What will be my experience after the death of this body? It will be the same experience as per what we experience in our sleep. Only thing is, because of this knowledge, I will know that this is my state even while I am living. That state by which I know that this is my real nature, that is called as Jivan Mukti. It's called as I am free from the identifications with this body. Okay, I think your question, anyway, I think I've answered. Anybody else has any other thing?
Shekhar-ji, this is Ramesh here.
Ramesh?
I'm not sure whether my perspective is getting covered in the rest of the sessions, which are likely to come. But this is slightly a different question that I have. So when we have a perspective of Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma and I am Atma Brahma and all this, Upanishad statements, which are motherhood statements. On one side, Ramana Maharshi says that we are the pure consciousness, and on the while we consider all that as one side, and another side, he also says that there is God.
Yeah.
When I'm saying, I am Atma Brahma, so that means I am that, right?
Yeah.
But where is the question of we surrendering, we being already the one consciousness, which is none other than the supreme power or whatever we call it as. We are that, right?
Yeah.
But why does he say that we have to surrender to God?
Okay, good question.
Like God.
Yeah, I understand, Ramesh. What the reason is that the concept of Ishvara or God is only to help seekers like us to reach that final state.
Mm-hmm.
It is only as a stepping stone. It is not the final. It is only to help people who are still identifying for. If suppose you are saying I am already identified as pure consciousness, then Ishvara and Jiva and Jagat does not come into your play at all.
Right.
When
where I was finding it.
You are right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are at a different Paramarthika state already.
Okay.
From that state, there is no Ishvara, there is no Jiva, there is no Jagat. But for seekers like us who are walking the path to reach that state, he still says surrender to this Ishvara. That is a stepping stone for the Nirguna stage.
Okay. Because on the in from the context of Shankara Advaita, it says that it is pure Advaita. That means there is none, there is
Absolutely.
nothing else.
Yeah.
Right. So I was wondering, what is the context that Ramana Maharshi is bringing in?
Yeah, this is only at a preliminary stage. He will tell us that once you reach, drop the ego I, there is nothing else, but that is the truth. That's all.
Okay.
This is a stepping stone.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody else?
Secretary.
Huh?
But how to surrender to a formless form, or we call God?
No, you don't need to surrender to the formless form, a formless God. You only surrender to the formed God. You cannot surrender to the formless because it's very difficult. You can only say, I am that, the God's nature is that and my nature is that. It is only understanding. You can only surrender to somebody with form. You see, because you think you are the body, you say, I surrender to also the body, the body of the Lord who has got the form. If you say, I am formless, then the Lord is also formless. The two formless natures cannot have any surrendered and surrendering relationship. In a formless, you cannot have a relationship. It is only existing as one principle. So with Bhagavan as the Ishvara, with a form, you surrender. That is what Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, you know, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja. You surrender to me. He says clearly, sir, that surrender means you will surrender to me, the Lord. I will take care of you. And then you do your duty. But the moment you understand that there is a higher principle which is formless, then this surrender has got no word, no meaning. It is only ekam. Only one principle exists. That's all. Okay. Good night to everybody.
Good night. Yeah.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Shekaji. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Shekaji.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Shekaji.
Okay, Venkatesh. Bye.
Yeah.